Thank you.
So, what were some of the hardest goals when you were a child?
Oh my gosh, when I was a child, I think my number one goal was to leave my small town. And I did do that. And I did it by number one, going to college. And that was, I think that was the best thing I ever did, was go to college.
Was it hard?
In a way it wasn't. My parents were very poor, and my mother said, "We won't stand in your way." And I thought, as if she could. They weren't paying for it. I had a tuition scholarship, which was wonderful. I had a work-study job, so I was able to work and help pay for my way. And then I had loans, which in those days were not as bad as they are now, because in those days it was right after Sputnik, which was the first satellite that the Russians put up into space. And so Congress got really worried, and they put forth something they called the National Defense Education Act. And included in that was grant money, loan money, which I paid back 100%, to encourage people to become teachers, because at that time Congress felt that through education, by helping young people become teachers, that was one way to get ahead of other countries, including the Russians in the space race, which, as you know, things are very different now. But that's how I got through college. A scholarship, work-study job, and loans.
What was your favorite subject in college?
Oh my gosh, my very two favorite were English and history, and I kind of put them together. It was kind of, my major was humanities interdepartmental, which combined English, history, and psychology. And it was kind of I said it was liberal arts, no preference. I mean, it was just, and I loved it. I said I absolutely loved it. I felt like I was born at age 18, seriously, going to college.
What was the least subject that you didn't like?
I guess if I didn't like it, I didn't sign up for it. I didn't, because in college it's a little bit different than high school, where you have a certain classes that you have to take. And for instance, my favorite science was biology. And although I did well in physics and chemistry, but I can't say I really loved them, because they were really difficult. Sciences were hard, and math was, I loved math, but it was like it took me twice as long to get through math as most people, I guess, and it wasn't intuitive, as they would say then. I really liked math because it's logic, but it took me twice as long to kind of get it. So I did take a class in math and in college. I got as far as college algebra. Calculus was beyond me. But thank God I didn't have to take that if I didn't want to. But yeah, I loved history. I took one class that was totally devoted to the Civil War, the American Civil War, and I love that. And I also took a lot of classes in sub-Saharan Africa. I really got really interested in that, and so I took a lot of literature in sub-Saharan Africa. And in those days, it didn't count for my major, but I thought it was interesting, and sometimes I would just look at what books were going to be read for a class, and I would decide, oh, I'll take that class because I like the books they're reading. And, oh gosh, reading has always been an interest of mine. I said literature, all kinds of literature, ever since. And before.
What was your favorite book to read?
Oh gosh. Oh, I think it changes every year. I can remember in high school reading Gone with the Wind, and I stayed up all night reading that. It was just, But I also read War and Peace, which is, I think after 180 pages, I finally got into it. I mean, it's a really long book, but I was spellbound. And now I was just so excited to see that a book that I just loved had been made into a movie, and I just found out last week. And then, Sunday night, the woman starring in that movie won a Golden Globe for Best Actress, and that book was called Still Alice, and it's about a woman who's going through early Alzheimer's, like she's in her 50s, and she's, usually that's something that doesn't, people don't develop it till they're maybe much older, in their 80s, and that book was just so wonderful. I really recommend you read Still Alice. It's as if you're getting in the head of this woman who's developing Alzheimer's, and maybe as a young person this isn't something that you worry about or maybe even care to read about, but it's a really good book, and you can go see the movie too.
When you were little, did you play a lot?
I didn't. I grew up on a farm, and it seems like there was always work to be done. And maybe when I was very little, I played with my cousin who lived a half a mile away. But it seemed like there was, whether it was dusting or working out in the fields, because we had to work in the fields growing up on a farm, helping out my mom with the ironing, the dishes, the cleaning. It seems like there was always something to be done. So I really didn't play a lot. And so when I became an adult, I found things to do where I could play. I love going out to tea. I go with my friends, all of us little old ladies, and we go out to tea. It's like having a tea party, like you might have had when you were a little girl. We really go out to tea, and I'm just always planning one of those. And I like to travel, and again, that's kind of like playing for me. Going out and meeting people of different cultures and new things. I really enjoy that.
Is there anything that you like to do on the farm?
That I like to do on the farm? Well, I guess, we had, when I was very little, we had almost every animal. We had horses and pigs and cows and chickens and cats and dogs. And as I got older, we sold the horses because we had tractors to do the work that horses did. And then we sold the pigs and no longer raised pigs, although my uncle still had pigs and he had goats. I had a pet goat when I was little. But eventually, and then we sold all the cows and strictly raised crops. It was a very small farm. It was only 80 acres, and can't really make a living off that, but my dad loved it. And I guess I loved the animals. I just didn't like the work that went with the farm. And again, that's one reason to escape to college. It was like I never wanted to work on a farm again. I'm not interested in gardening. I like seeing the results of gardening, but I don't want to get down and do the work that goes with that. So it's just, it's interesting how some of those little things of your childhood can affect where your life goes. I love the animals. I love the dogs and cats. And I said, I had a pet goat. We had pet cows. It was, that's the nicest part, was the animals.
What was your favorite animal?
Well, it's difficult to say because I love dogs and I love cats, and probably cats are my favorite because they're so independent. You can't tell a cat what to do. Dogs are so sweet, and they want they want to please you. They love you. But cats, not always. They're very independent, and I like them for that.
When you were with the animals, did you ever collect some of the things that they made? Like milk and eggs?
Oh, did I go out and collect the eggs? I might have occasionally. It wasn't exactly my job to do that with the chickens. I think my mom did that more than I did. I don't know if she didn't trust me or what, and sometimes there'd be a hen who would be sitting on her eggs, and birds like to sit on the eggs that they've laid. So like, you're afraid to stick your hand under there and try and get some of those eggs that she's laid. But and I didn't really. My father and my brothers probably did more of the milking chores, of the cows, although my mom did some of that too. And I would try and make sure that my cats got some of the milk. It's like whatever little, like give the kitties a little bit. And one time I know I was 5, and I didn't know there was a right side to get to a cow. You're supposed to approach from the cow's right side. And I just wanted to get some milk for my kitties. I didn't know how to milk a cow, but I thought I would try. And so I went to the cow, and I was going to get some milk for the kitty. Well, my mother didn't see me, and she patted the cow and wanted the cow to move over. So the cow stepped on my foot. And I really thought I had a broken foot. I mean, I don't know if I did or not. We weren't much for going to the doctor because that costs money. But I remember really hurting, and it was like, and my mother felt so bad because she had made the cow move. And it was like, wasn't my mom's fault, wasn't the cow's fault, probably my fault because I didn't know which was the right way to come to approach a cow. And I'm just doing it for my kitties. So I guess it shows I really love my kitties.
Would you like to learn how to, collect the eggs and stuff?
Like what?
Collect the eggs and the milk.
Would I have liked to have
Yeah.
done that? I guess it wasn't a priority for me. I just even as a little girl, what I really liked to do most was read. I would rather be reading than doing about anything else. And we didn't have a lot of books. And we might go to the library once a year. It was only 10 miles away in town, but it was like, and I don't know why we didn't go that often, but my Uncle John had a subscription to a magazine called the Saturday Evening Post, which I don't think they publish anymore, but it was really interesting and had stories and articles, and he would bring, after he finished them, he would bring them to our house, and we would devour them, we would read them. Everybody in my family liked to read, and my mother did too, and maybe that was the example. But, still my mother was, there's work that has to be done. You don't stop working and take some time off and just enjoy reading something just because you like to read. Maybe you do that in bed, and Mom doesn't know that you haven't turned off the light in the bedroom because you wanted to read.
Was there any books that you would have liked to read back then?
Well, when I went to a Catholic school, and they didn't have a very good library in the school, and you weren't allowed to take them home. And they were a much lower level than for our grade level, so it was really kind of odd. So I really didn't get to read what they call the classics that everybody's supposed to read before they get through high school. I think I made a point at one time that I was going to read some of the classics, but if I read, for instance, Moby Dick, it was an abridged version. I will have to say that I think it was the nuns that gave my sister a copy of Little Women and 8 Cousins. And these were by an author, Louisa May Alcott. you know how kids are reading Harry Potter 7, 8 times? My granddaughter's doing that right now. And she's not 10 yet. I read Eight Cousins and Little Women at least 7 or 8 times. I loved those stories. I thought that I might grow up to be an author because I was just so interested in those stories. Well, I'm a reader, not a writer, so really recognized early on that I didn't have the kind of imagination that you might need for writing stories. But boy, I guess I'd love to read. So those were 2 books that that were in our house, and that we did read.
Did you see any movies?
You know, when I was 5, my dad bought a TV set. It was the first, he sold a cow, and I think it was $600, which was a lot of money in 1950. And he bought a TV set, black and white TV set, for about $500 or $600. And Daddy said, now that we have a TV, we don't need to go to the movies anymore. So I think I saw 2 movies between age 5 and when I went to college. And I think that was because we were at my cousin's and it was Thanksgiving and it was like, get the kids out of the house, send them to the movies. And I went to the movies once with my cousin for her birthday. I probably saw 4 movies in that total time. So when I went to college, again, I could go to the movies because they were within walking distance, and I could go on my own, and I could use my own money to pay going to the movies. And now I go to the senior center to Mastic, and they have movies for free because now they're on, you know, DVD, and they show them once a week, and so I get to see a lot of movies every year at the senior center, so that's great too. I don't have to pay money to go see those.
Did you have any movies that you didn't like?
I saw so few that it was hard to say I didn't like them. One Western was Capture of Cochise. That was, I mean, what did I know? It was Michael Ansara. I can remember these things. And we saw, this is my cousin, we went to see the 10 Commandments. And so I guess there were so few movies there was nothing that I didn't like. I mean, now I can see movies that I don't like.
Was there any movies that you thought that were interesting, like a movie about exploring?
Well, I like documentaries when I think about movies that are about exploring. But it's got to be something that tells a story. There was a movie that came out last year called The Monuments Men. Well, I saw that movie, but I also saw a documentary that dealt with the same story about paintings being hidden in caves all over Europe by the Nazis. And it was just fascinating to see the documentary and to see the fictional story. That's just interesting to me. And I can't say I liked one better than the other because they're different aspects that I liked of each one. And I still like documentaries. Probably don't like the ones where there's a lot of car chases and a lot of blood. There was one movie they showed at the senior center that was so awful. My friend, after it was over with, my friend turned and looked at me and said, "That was 2 hours I'll never get back."
So you don't like any scary movies?
Oh, no. Yeah, don't really like scary movies, horror movies, that sort of thing. They're, you know, I don't know, Friday the 13th and Freddy, I don't know, Nightmare on Elm Street sort of. I don't even go see those. And if somebody's showing them, yeah, I'm not going to watch them.
But you like comedy, right?
Yeah, I like comedy. Sometimes, you know, what they call a romance type movie, I don't necessarily care for those because they get kind of boring. They're like a formula, the same old thing. But every once in a while, it's like, oh, okay. At least, especially if it's free, I don't mind going to go see it.
Do you like romance movies, right?
I said it all depends. I think my favorite are movies that deal with friendship. You know, like E.T. Oh my gosh, I cried. I mean, I'm grown up, but I cried because at the very end it was like his friend was leaving, and who knows, they probably wouldn't see each other again, even though this was an alien and this was a young boy, but it was about friendship. And the movie last year, I loved Frozen, because it was not your typical, oh, the handsome prince takes her away and they live in the castle. It was about two sisters who loved each other. That's the kind of story that really gets to me. You know, there's that relationship of sisters taking care of each other. And so my friend who has never seen it, it's like, oh my gosh. And then of course I have friends who have young grandchildren and they've seen it 10 times just like I have.
Ladies, look at the paper and ask some questions off of that.
I don't think there's much on there.
Is there anything else you want to share about here?
Gosh. Well, I have one daughter, and I have 4 beautiful grandchildren, whom I dearly love, but they live all the way in Texas. And so I go to Texas quite often, like sometimes 6 times a year, sometimes only 3 times a year. I can't believe that there are grandparents who say that they haven't seen their grandchildren for 2 years, and it's like, oh my gosh, you changed so much in 2 years. So I just booked today. I booked a flight. My granddaughter, the youngest one, will be 10 at the end of next month in February. And I just booked a flight to go see her because I figure 10, that's very momentous. That's double digits, you know. So I have to go see her. And then the oldest grandchild, my grandson who's 21, he will be graduating from college in May. And of course, I have to go to Maryland to see him graduate from college because these are so important. So I would say, yeah, they are the lights of my life. And I do have only one daughter, but I can't see I love one grandchild more than the other because they're very different. And all 4 of them are very wonderful, each in their own way. That's what's near and dear to my heart, my grandchildren.
Newspapers? Do you read any these days?
I really gave up my subscription to the Oakland Tribune because it seems like it would be tossed on the porch with a rubber band, and I would take the rubber band off and it would go into recycling because I didn't have the time to read them, so I gave up my subscription. But I broke my ankle last year, and for 2 months I could not leave and go away, and I was in my friends had to take care of me. I was at their home for 2 months, and they got subscriptions to both the Oakland Tribune and the San Francisco Chronicle, and so every morning it was like, wow, I had the luxury since I couldn't go anywhere. My friend's husband would make me breakfast, a wonderful, healthy breakfast, and he would read the paper, and I would read the paper, and I would do the crosswords in both papers. I love crossword puzzles. And that was what I did until lunchtime. I read the paper and I did the crosswords, and it was like, because that was the time. I was like, I'd never had that kind of time when you had nothing else to do. I mean, because I couldn't do anything else. was in a wheelchair and kind of limited in, it was like, TV wasn't that interesting that time of the day, and so then I could read the newspaper, but I haven't gotten back in the habit of reading the newspaper. I'll read the East Bay Express sometimes because that has interesting articles, but that's about it with newspapers. I do, since we have the internet now, I do, but you get these little short articles on news on what's happening, but nothing in depth like newspapers.
Do you watch any sports?
Actually, I have to mention my granddaughter, who's 15, plays volleyball. So I've gotten to know a little bit more about volleyball than I used to. And my son-in-law used to play professional football. So yes, I've gotten interested in football. And so there are teams that I dislike and teams that I hate and teams that I love. And my grandson, the oldest one who's graduating from college, had a football scholarship. So, yeah, I still am kind of interested in football.
Do you like the Dallas Cowboys?
No. Even though they live right near Dallas. They live about 15 miles from, well, it's not called Cowboy Stadium anymore. It's AT&T. In fact, some friends, the high school class that graduated a year before my grandson, the parents rented out the stadium for the graduation ceremony, if you can imagine, the Cowboy Stadium. But the Cowboys are not a favorite team of mine at all.
On the TV, when you're watching, do you see ads?
You know, I really pre-record most of the shows that I watch, so I don't, I fast forward through the ads. I don't see too many ads. Occasionally I do, and sometimes there are some good ones, like, when I watch the Super Bowl, and I will watch the Super Bowl, those ads are so clever, of course I have to watch those. Especially the one about the horse and the dog who are good friends. I mean, they said friendship is such a value to me.
Well, on the ads, do you see any children ads, like they're selling toys?
Well, I don't watch kids shows as much as I used to. And, I mean, it used to be, especially when my grandkids were watching TV a lot more. They don't watch TV as much as they used to. It would be like, oh boy, you knew what toy was going to be the favorite thing, and that's what they would want for Christmas. Whatever was being promoted on TV. But I said I don't watch as many ads anymore, so it's hard to say.
I have a random question. Do you have a favorite kind of tea?
A kind of what?
Flavor of tea.
Oh, flavor of tea. Actually, Numi tea that's based in Oakland, and they have a special tea that's fermented and aged, and it's called Pu'er, and the best is Emperor Pu'er, and it's kind of like very, very strong and flavorful. So I do like that. I mean, it's interesting that you asked that question because I do have a favorite tea.
Well, it's good, like, I drinks a lot of tea.
Oh, really? Well, Numi teas, they're all very, very good. I mean, it's just, and of course that makes me think about my grandmother, because being from Europe, they drank a lot of tea, and they drink it with milk, so I will probably drink tea with milk more often than just plain tea, although Chinese tea, I like it just plain, but I never put sugar in tea. Just milk. Very British.
Sometimes my family puts, like, honey.
My brother loves it with honey, and I don't care for honey. We had neighbors that would, I don't know what, I guess you keep bees, you don't raise them, but whenever we would need honey, we'd just take a big old jar and go over there and buy it. Don't have to go to the grocery store. But my brother, if you didn't put salt on it, you put honey in it. That was about the way he eats.
Do you have any tea that when you tried it you didn't like it?
Probably a lot. I don't know, there are some teas, like if they're very weak, and I don't like a lot of green teas, but I do like jasmine, which is green tea. I like teas that have a lot of flavor. I like chai, which isn't exactly a tea.
Do you like teas like to help you go to sleep?
No, like, yeah, thinking about chamomile. Don't like chamomile. No. Trying to think what kind of... I don't have anything that helps me go to sleep. I go to sleep... I'd rather try and stay awake. It seems like I'm falling asleep when I'm trying to watch something on TV, and I'm just...
Do you have any favorite TV shows that you watch?
PBS. Like I said, I feel so fortunate to be in a day and age when I can record TV shows. Of course, I'm watching Downton Abbey and all the mysteries, Masterpiece, everything. And again, I love documentaries and Independent Lens and Point of View and American Masters, American Experience. I record all of them, and I watch them as I can. I do watch commercial TV. I can't say what's my favorite of any of that. It's, I watch The Good Wife, and I know there are others, but I just, the ones that jump out at me more are the ones on PBS.
Do you you said you like to travel, so what kind of places have you traveled to?
Well, when I was in college, I went to Mexico twice. It was like the summer between my junior and senior years, and then after my senior year, I also went to Mexico. And almost 50 years later, I've not been back to Mexico, and part of it might be that there are safety issues in traveling to Mexico now. So I've gone to Europe a few times. I love London. I used to say, people who go to England just go there because they can speak the language. Well, that's a good reason. But, I think so much of American history is based on British history. We study what happened in England before the colonists came over, and so there's a lot of British history that it's like, oh my gosh, here's where Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth are buried, from that era, King Henry's daughters. And so to go to Stratford-on-Avon and see where Shakespeare used to walk, that's interesting to me. But I've also been to France, Paris. I've been to Spain, Portugal. I've only been to Venice and Italy, but my family comes from Poland, so I've been there twice. And trying to think where else is interesting to me. Germany, went to some World's Fairs. I love going to World Fairs. That's another thing that my family we like to do. They're, expositions where different countries come together and they show you the best things that there are about these countries. And again, that's something I really love to learn about, is different cultures, different countries. I really love Africa because it seems like that's so different from what we get to see every day, but haven't been able to get there. I would love to go to Egypt. Again, safety issues prevent me from visiting there. Another place on my bucket list is Greece. I want to go to Greece eventually. I hope.
With your grandchildren, did you like go to any places like, let's say, Great America or Disneyland?
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, I didn't go with them. I took my daughter to Disneyland. I've gone to Disneyland without my daughter. I love Disneyland. My granddaughter was playing in a volleyball tournament at the Wide World of Sports at Disney World. And so her whole team was doing a tour of Disney World. And I went also, and it was also right after my 65th birthday, and I can't really walk very much, but at Disney World you can rent these little scooters for $50 a day, and so I just went off on my own.
If Kaylin Johnson is still in the library, please return to the children's desk. Kaylin Johnson.
And because it was so close to my 65th birthday, I went to guest services and I got a button that said it's my birthday. And everywhere I went with that button, I highly recommend doing it if it's near your birthday. I was like, oh, it's your birthday, you know, come to the head of the line, or just all these wonderful things. I was really treated very well because it was my birthday. Well, you know, it was like within 7 days of my birthday. But I had so much fun, even if I was there on my own, you know, because my daughter and granddaughter were doing their group thing, although it was like in all of Disney World, I was supposed to meet up with them eventually, and we were having dinner together. It was a special dinner just for the team. And I saw them outside some particular thing that was like Sleeping Beauty, or no, it was Beauty and the Beast. And it was like, oh my gosh. So I joined up with them, and I wasn't able to get into the Pixar Toy Story thing, but they had, because of the tour they were on, they got to go to the head of the line there, because they told me, oh, there are no more tickets to get in for today. And I thought, oh well, I thought Pixar, I live right near Pixar, I should be able to go to this. Well, anyway, so I got to go in with them, and we went to the dinner, and then we all went to see the Fantasia, you know, that light show afterwards. So that was really fun. So yeah, I got to do that with my grandkids, at least 3 of them. So that was fun. One thing I did do with my grandsons when they were very little, we were supposed to take a family trip to the Cayman Islands. This was right near Jamaica, just below Cuba. And my son-in-law's father was very ill, so they canceled. But my sister and I took my 2 grandsons, who were 3 and 6, took them with us to the Cayman Islands. We had so much fun. And it's just, you know, they were so young and they were so endearing. It was like, boy, those were such good memories. Just really good memories. You know, Jalil is 6 and he's helping do a beach cleanup. It's like, oh, you know, very precious.
Was there any places that you would have liked to go with your grandchildren?
That I would not